Well, everyone, today is a quick review roundup for Ghost of Yotei. I am here with my new co-host, Mr. Romeo, who's a lot bigger than the last time you saw him. We are practicing being in the studio. I don't know how well this will go because it's getting really cold outside. And so we're practicing being inside more, and we're doing okay. We're doing pretty good. So I wanted to talk about this because the reviews just dropped for Ghost of Yotei, and overall the reception has been really, really good. Like really good, which is always great to see. As you can see, the current review roundup on Metacritic sits it at an 87 out of 103 reviews. That's significant because a lot of games recently have been peaking at like 50 reviews by this point in the day. And so it's good to see that there's a lot. And also they've had the game for like 2 or 3 weeks or something at this point. So a lot of people have had lots of time with it, which also signals a lot of confidence. Oh, he got into the Bella Ramsey shirt. I'm not joking. That's the shirt that he has. Hey, that's not yours. But having said all of that, there are some interesting tidbits in the reviews that stood out to me. Of course, there's some that are going to be perfect scores, people that really, really liked it and are saying it's a masterpiece. But overall, it seems to be that it's a game with phenomenal combat. It's very polished. It's beautiful. If there is a problem or a shortcoming, it's that the story is pretty predictable, which is not anything crazy. I mean, as they've already communicated, this is not a spoiler or anything. Like, they've been very clear about this. It is a revenge story where the protagonist, Atsu, I believe, is going and trying to enact vengeance upon her enemies who are responsible for the death of her family. Which is interesting because it's basically like the same storyline as Assassin's Creed Shadows, but with Ghost of, Yotei gameplay. But overall, like, the combat, phenomenal. The world building, really, really good. It's beautiful. It runs great, which is also really, really good to see. As you can see, also, IGN specifically brings up the discussion of traditionally structured open world games, which has been a point of contention recently. And they say, I appreciate the way Yotei expresses just enough restraint with its separate zones while maintaining the impression of a gigantic map, and letting the vibe carry you from one thing to the next doesn't feel at odds, as this is Atsu's path of vengeance that mostly works on her terms, with aesthetic options like returning Kurosawa mode that turns everything black and white, or with Japanese audio, or new modes like Takashi Miike option that ups the blood and gore by 1,000%, with Samurai Champloo-esque, I don't know how to say these words, mode that turns the lo-fi beats. Ghost of Yotei has several nice touches atop its penchant for spectacle. They do have a lot of little bells and whistles, smaller things that a lot of other games would not bother with, that they've added here just because they're like, yeah, we've got extra time and we can do that. And this is what's just nice to see, is that they have managed to seemingly deliver on the premise of just Ghost of Yotei, but a bit bigger, more polished, a lot more going on, which is also nice. To be clear though, not everybody is like absolutely in love with it. I'm so cautious. Last time he was in the studio, if you don't know, he peed right there. He was a little puppy. He's still a puppy. He was a really little puppy, and he peed on the carpet. And I'm hopeful he doesn't do that again. But we're gonna find out. Right now he's just sniffing around. But having said that, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are some outlets that didn't like it. This one, Radio Times, who I'm not familiar with, but they got a review code, so Sony must think that they are worth checking out. They put out their review, which put it at 3 out of 5 stars, which converts to a 6 out of 10 score. 6 out of 10 typically is considered bad by most metrics, but on a 3 out of 5 scale, it's not actually that bad. Like, 3 out of 5 stars is actually probably good by most definitions of like a star-based grading system, which is why you just have to be cautious. Like, it's really, really easy for us to convert it to the 10 scale and be like, oh, so it's terrible. And it's like, no, that's not what they were trying to communicate. It's just more of a restriction of the way that they've set up the grading scale. But as you can see, they mentioned, speaking of Assassin's Creed, that brings us to another major reason why Yotei feels so familiar. The central narrative in Ghost of Yotei is eerily similar to the central narrative of last year's Assassin's Creed Shadows. Last year's? Hey, this is my spot. This is my stuff. Down. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, basically this review is frustrated that it feels quite samey and familiar. What they say, so between the open world exploration that reminds me so much of Tsushima and the lengthy story missions that remind me so much of AC Shadows, it's hard to shake the feeling that there isn't a huge amount of originality here. In fact, it makes me think that much of the much memed scene from Squid Game Season 2, where the frustrated returning hero shouts for all to hear, "I've played these games before." Sadly, it's hard to shake that feeling, and it did impact my enjoyment for a large stretch of my playtime when the game doesn't seem to be doing much that I haven't seen before in recent memory. The urge to explore and to see more does start to wane. All that being said, there are nuggets of greatness to be found in Ghost of Yotei if you do take the time to look around and smell the roses. And this, I mean, I think all of these are accurate. Like, none of these reviews are like acting in bad faith or anything. They are accurately reporting their opinions of the game. And it's just a matter of difference of opinion that will typically lead to differing scores. You are not supposed to be up here. You got to get down. He's too sweet. He can't help it. I think all of these are bringing forward interesting things and interesting points. But I think the key consideration, he wants to play. Okay, we'll play in just a minute. We'll play. Anyway, I think all of these are bringing up interesting points that are worth discussing, because honestly, if you are kind of like burned out on open world stuff, you're probably going to be burned out on this. Did he take it again? He took like the AC Shadows flag thing that they gave me. Come on, boy. Okay, I am back. He's just so excited. And don't worry, we're doing training and stuff. We're working on it. It's just, he's a puppy. I mean, he's all of what, 6 months old at this point. So he's acting like it. He's big for 6 months, but anyway, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, just all of these reviews offer an interesting perspective, and some of it may apply to you and other parts might not. Like, if you're a big fan of open world games, you're probably gonna like this because it's an open world game. If you don't really like open world games and you like more linear stuff, or you like ARPGs or something, it's probably not gonna be for you. You know, it's one of those games that is a refinement, not a revolution. And I think that's a crucial thing to understand. And I think it's part of the reason why some people have looked at Ghost of Yotei's trailers and stuff and found it kind of underwhelming, maybe. They're like, it looks kind of like Ghost of Tsushima again. But I think that's precisely the point, is that this is a refinement, not a revolution. They are trying to take what they did in Tsushima and do it even better here and just crank up some dials and knobs. But ultimately, it is still one of those games. It's still a Ghost game. It's still a game heavily inspired by Assassin's Creed games of the late 2010 era, which I don't have a problem with. I mean, I know we like to meme on Assassin's Creed a lot because often there's not a whole lot of like innovation, but here there are some actual novel ideas at play, which is really exciting to see. Let me show you one in particular. It came from the Game Rant video and review that they posted, where basically they mentioned that there's a bunch of open world activities that they tie into the main story, and they try to give consequence in a tangible way. Basically, what that means is that there will be camps, for example, scattered around the map. In this case, they say players can take the stealthy approach and kill every enemy one by one to take camps over, but they can also run in swords blazing if they would rather, just like in the first game. But regardless, taking the camp triggered a scene with Saito where the big bad commented on Atsu's efforts and the impact that they were having. As more members of the Yotei 6 are knocked off the board, Saito's men become more dangerous and take Atsu more seriously, which means traps and more heavily armed enemies in the open world. This helps make almost everything feel tied to the Yotei 6 and makes the side content more compelling than it would be otherwise. And in practice, you know, mechanically, I think that this is probably just like a basic meter that's probably hidden behind the scenes, where it's like, oh, every time you take out a camp, the meter fills a little bit until eventually it gets all the way filled and, you know, it triggers one of these cutscenes. And so you will never see it, but effectively they have like, you know, the camp meter, and the camp meter fills up as you're going through taking out camps. And once it's completely filled up all the way to the max, then a cutscene triggers, and then this meter kind of resets for the next stage of cutscene or whatever else happens. Similarly, as each one of the core 6 enemies that you're going through, again, very similar in structure to like Far Cry 5. As you take out each of these, you'll see the open world changing as the severity opens up. And all they've really done is created 6 different states for the game world or for those encampments or for those ambushes to take form in terms of difficulty, number of enemies, what have you. But in practice, it makes it feel like as you go through the game and you are encountering more of these Yotei 6 main villains, you take them out and then the world changes and reacts to you, which sounds like a no-duh type of thing, but that's not even something we saw earlier this year with Assassin's Creed Shadows. They had very, let's just say, they had a lot of bosses. They had a lot of missions and quests and a lot of targets for you to go after. And after you took them out, largely, nothing really felt like it changed. It was like, okay, I guess that fort is cleared now, but you wait an in-game day and then it's repopulated with guards so you can go grind it out again for more like crafting materials for your settlement. And it just kind of lost all impact. It didn't feel like you were actually making a difference. The world wasn't changing as you performed actions. It was just like changing on paper, but not in actuality. And in this case, it feels, or at least it seems based on the reviews, that as you complete open world activities, it will have a tangible impact on not just the difficulty of the game, but also the way that it presents itself to you, which again, I just really appreciate. The other thing that is really good to hear is the side content. Ghost of Tsushima, I love it. I think it's a phenomenal game. I didn't connect with it when I first played it, but when they issued out the 60 FPS update, I fell in love with it. I don't know what it was, but when they put out the 60 FPS version through, I think, the director's cut, all of a sudden, it's like, I got it. My brain clicked with it, and I love Ghost of Tsushima. But it was not perfect. It was not perfect. And one of the things it was criticized for when it launched was over inspirations, if that's a term, from like Far Cry, for example, because it had a really basic structure for a lot of side activities where it was either fetch quests or it was go clear out this camp, and it was very repetitive in that way. But with this game, it seems like they've actually put a ton of effort into overhauling the side content. As you can see, this is again from the Game Rant review. Ghost of Yotei side content is, in general, is head and shoulders above Tsushima, with all kinds of intriguing side quests and epic battles for those that seek them out. The repetitive checklist-style open-world structure is still a factor in Yotei, but there's more variety to the tasks. Yes, Atsu will need to go visit a bunch of shrines to unlock new techniques and abilities, but the path to each one is unique. One might require climbing and platforming up a mountain, while another may involve light puzzle solving or stealthily clearing out a camp or group of enemies. Since Ghost of Yotei upgrades are tied to things like shrines, seeking out and engaging in the side content is definitely worthwhile. Doing so gives Atsu more options in combat, in turn making fights more fun. While upgrades aren't necessary to complete the game, they give Atsu a significant advantage, like the one that allows for chain assassinations, or another that unlocks a special charge attack that can one-shot certain enemies if timed correctly. And again, this is all very familiar if you have played a lot of open world games. You don't have to do the side content, but if you do, it gives you significant advantages in combat, and it will make things a lot easier in turn. And so all of this is like pretty much in line with what we would come to expect from an open world game. None of it's particularly shocking or anything. It's pretty much in line with what you would expect. As you're seeing here, the game is also graphically stunning. This is the Digital Foundry review and roundup that they just posted. I encourage you to go watch the whole thing, but no shocker, it's very beautiful. And it's not just technical execution that's done really well when it comes to actual frame rates and everything, but it's also just the art direction. And if you played Ghost of Tsushima, you know all too well how beautiful certain points of this game, really a vast majority of the moments in the game are. It really is stunning. It just is. Like, look at the ray trace lighting reflecting on her cheek. It's beautiful. Really beautiful lighting. But there was something I heard somebody say about Ghost of Tsushima that gave me pause, and I've thought about it ever since, especially with Ghost of Yotei. They were like, literally any moment in the game, you could pause the screen and it would be a screenshot worthy of a wallpaper. And I think that that's true here as well. Like, you'll just see some of these moments as they're going through and like just exploring the open world. It's like, yep, that could be a wallpaper. That angle could be a wallpaper. Yep. That angle too. That could be a wallpaper. Like, it's just beautiful. Everywhere you look, it's just stunning. And, you know, I've said before, I mentioned this in my critique of the first game, I confess I have a proclivity to be a Family Guy South Park gamer, which basically just means that like my impulse naturally is to play a game and then on a second screen have Family Guy pulled up or South Park or a show or a documentary or something. It's just my ADHD brain. I'm like, oh, I'm exploring the open world. Oh, I'll just turn that on. And that's something that you do in like an Assassin's Creed Shadows, because there's not really anything to see or be captivated by while you're exploring. But Ghost of Tsushima was one of the open world games where I turned everything off and I just sat immersed in this world. It's the same feeling I've had with other games like KCD 1 and 2, where they are so immersive. You don't want distractions pulling you into this world again. You want to just get lost in this one. And that's something that Ghost of Tsushima was able to pull off. And I'm guessing that Ghost of Yotei will do for me as well. It's just so beautiful. The music, the lack of UI also, all of it contributes to a very immersive experience that I just absolutely adore. I eat it up and I love to see it. They've also managed to expand the FOV on console as well, which is really cool to see. I remember hearing one of the graphics engineers, I forget which studio he was with, but like this shot right here, most games will not give you this wide of an FOV. And in case you don't know what FOV is, because, I won't assume that everybody knows, it's basically just the field of view. So if, for example, the player is standing like right here on the precipice of this like hilltop, a lot of games, especially on console, will have a tight FOV. I don't know, maybe it's 75, 80 degrees, but basically this is the range that you can see. That's your vision. And on console, you're usually pretty limited because, as you would expect, if you expand this out and you make the FOV wider, that gives you a wider view, but it also means that you're rendering all of this that you didn't have to render before. And so it creates a much bigger strain on the hardware because you are literally rendering more than you were before. So a lot of games on console have restricted FOVs because it helps them achieve better performance since they don't have to render as much geometry or, trace as many rays. But with Ghost of Yotei, they've managed to actually increase the FOV more than they had in Ghost of Tsushima, while cranking fidelity significantly, not just in terms of the foliage, but the draw distance as well. Like if you really look at some of these details, like the grass in the fields, yes, it does start to get kind of lost and blurred off in the distance, but it's done in a really, really smooth way. Older games, you have really stark LODs or levels of detail, as you go further and further. I think we've all played those games where it's like a perfect circle around the player. And it's like right here is where it cuts off from the nice high quality foliage. And then just past that is the really low quality. And just past that is no foliage at all. And so as you're running, you're watching it pop in as you go. And that's not really been an issue in the PS5 generation for these big budget AAA games. And so it's easy to get used to it, but it still, I think, is worth acknowledging just how expertly well done this was and how well executed it was. And it's important in a game like this, especially too, because your eye is naturally going to be looking off into the horizon in a game like this a lot more than like a first person shooter or something. And it's because like, it's for one, just beautiful. The art direction's gorgeous. So you're going to have moments like this where you're just pausing, standing there, looking off in the distance at the mountains and everything. But also the way that they've designed the game is with minimalistic UI, and that's done because they want you immersed in the world. They want you looking at the world instead of at a menu or a UI element, which I totally appreciate. And so how do you communicate to players where they should go if you don't have the UI? Well, Ghost of Tsushima had the system where the wind blows and points in the direction of your pinned objective, which is a really smooth way of doing it. How they do it in Ghost of Yotei is similar as well, but of course, but they also want to have individual points of interest that call to your attention without having to put a glowing red dot or gold dot above the compass or anything for you. So they put smokestacks. So you see these little smokestacks in the distance, and those are like, oh, it's a camp. I should ride there. I should see that. They also have these strips, which you can see are white flowers in the sea of yellow. And those are basically highways, or like dedicated roads, if you think of it that way, for you to ride your horse in. And when your horse is in the white flowers, he actually goes faster, which is a nice little way of increasing the speed for the player to navigate the open expanse of a lot of these big fields. So your eyes are naturally going to go higher. They're going to look further. And that's why that really well executed level of detail transition is really crucial. And they do a great job of it here. They really, really do. And you can see, I mean, it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. And amazingly enough, it is a game that is PS5 Pro enhanced, which is not a given nowadays. I thought by this point in the generation this would be a given, but it really is not. A lot of games are launching without any sort of enhancements on PS5 Pro, and even some run significantly worse on PS5 Pro, which is baffling. Silent Hill F, for example, runs worse on PS5 Pro because of a flickering issue related to the pisser upscaler. And so it actually looks worse on PS5 Pro than it does on the base PS5, which is crazy. They need to patch that out ASAP for sure. But I mean, just crazy, crazy amounts of detail. As you can see, of course, they do have some nitpicks as they outline here with regard to Ghost of Yotei. But overall, I mean, it's a pretty wildly impressive game graphically, which is just nice to see. The other thing that we talked about on stream recently was that they seemingly were able to achieve all of this within a budget that was roughly similar to Ghost of Tsushima. What they said word for word was that in terms of man hours, in terms of employees, in terms of all of that, the same amount of work went into Ghost of Yotei as went into Ghost of Tsushima. That does not mean, as some have reported, that the budget was the same. That's not what that means. Rather, it implies that the amount of work was the same, but as time has passed, probably it means that we are dealing with like regular budget increases with regard to like salaries or with regard to increased expenses for the healthcare or the building lease or whatever. You know, the server infrastructure costs have gone up. They're not saying it also costs $60 million. Ghost of Tsushima cost $60 million in 2020, you know, for the years before that. And Ghost of Tsushima, or Ghost of Yotei rather, probably cost like 70 or 80 with inflation and all of the other ways that prices have gone up. But the point is, they didn't need like 3,000 people working day and night to achieve these results. They were able to pull this off just with really, you know, high effort from some very talented people, but they didn't need to expand like crazy to pull this off, which I think is a trap that some studios fall into, is that they put out a really solid first game, it's popular, sells well, and then the studio's like, okay, so we need to double our headcount now and go double the size, double the scale, double the everything for the next game. And that can lead you into trouble because it's not that easy to scale up production on games, and the budgets and prices can skyrocket very, very quickly. And so they managed to pull this off without doing that, which again is just really refreshing to see. Overall, it just seems like it's a really solid game, which is not perfect. It does have some structural things that I'm sure will drive some people crazy. It is structured very similar to to Assassin's Creed Shadows in both narrative, and then also it takes a lot of inspiration in terms of structure from games like Far Cry 5, which some people will hear and go, hell yeah, I love those games. Other people may roll their eyes, but I think it's the execution here that really takes it above and beyond. You know, there's nothing wrong with having a big open world or a revenge story, or having a structure where you have to take out 6 big baddies before you get to the big boss at the end. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. The reason that that's kind of a trope of open world games is because it works. You know, the reason why we all have heard that before and played games with that before is because it works. And for them here, the key is execution and whether they can bring some more interesting ideas to the table later on, which is seemingly something that they have executed on and actually delivered on, which again is just really, really nice. And in the age of constant broken Unreal Engine ports and everything runs terribly and you have to upscale the ever-living hell out of it to get it running at all, it's just nice to see a game that looks beautiful, seemingly runs really well as well, and that also just has some beautiful execution, not just with art direction, but also in terms of gameplay design and everything else. So I'm a fan. I'm looking forward to trying it. I will have a video out on the big channel on this game, probably on launch day is my expectation, where we're going to try it. Sony generously is hooking us up with early access to it, so we will be able to do that, and I'll have that video up as soon as I can. But looking at these reviews, I am all the more excited for it. So let me know what you think of Ghost of Tsushima, and or rather Ghost of Yotei. I'm so used to, when you say Ghost of, I'm just like Tsushima, so I'm not used to Ghost of Yotei. I'm sure after playing it I will get used to it, but I'm looking forward to it. Let me know what you think of all of this in the comment section below. Did anything stand out to you from the reviews? Let me know. Are you going to be picking it up? I want to know. I want to know. Until then, my friends, much, much love, and I'll see you in the next one. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye. He took my thing.